everyone, and welcome as we get ready to hit the hiking trail. Today, we actually have sunlight. If you have noticed for the past 4 months, most of the videos, it has been dark and gloomy. That's because that's the way it is almost every day. But finally, we have some sun, some actual sunlight. And not only that, it is spring, it is beautiful outside, the grass is green, the flowers are blooming. Not only that, it feels like summer. We have high temperatures today of 81 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not normal for this time of the year. Typically, temperatures are around 58 to 60 degrees, but no, it is 81 degrees Fahrenheit. It feels like summer. I'm actually sweating right now. But we're in a beautiful location, and I have a great video for you today. If you are new to the channel, my name is Mike, and what I do here is point of view hiking videos. And I do it in beautiful 4K. I take a GoPro and I attach it right to my head and allow you to see what I see as I go through the hiking trail, and we go to various different locations. But there's a little twist to how I do things here, because sometimes what you'll get is a video where I tell you some kind of story, something inspirational, something motivational, or sometimes I do a video where I shut my mouth and I let you enjoy the sights and the sounds of what's all around me. So it really is like you are here doing this hike on your own. But today, I'm actually going to talk about something I feel is important. Now, I'm not sure if you're a fan of The X-Files. It is my #1 favorite TV show of all times. And in that show, you know that one of the beliefs was trust no one. And I have always believed in that. And it's not that you're trying to be mean or anything by not trusting people. It's just that trust really does need to be earned. But not only that, I feel that if you easily trust everybody around you, you could be setting yourself up for a world of pain because you let your guard down, and you should never let your guard down. And I like to use an expression, which is never get into bed with just anybody. And by that I mean, don't just blindly trust everybody. When you do, you set yourself up for disaster. So in today's video, I will make my case. And this is not an advice video or any of that. It's maybe to just get you thinking. Maybe to help you and make your life a little better. But before we do that, there's a couple of things we need to take care of. One, if you are new to the channel, and even if you're not new to the channel, and you haven't subscribed, now's a good time to do so. You know, you hear YouTubers asking people all the time to subscribe to their channel, but it actually does matter. It actually helps and makes a difference. The more people who subscribe to the channel, the more it tells YouTube that people are interested in this content, and then they show people the video. But if people aren't subscribing, people aren't liking the video, YouTube's not going to show anybody. And these videos will just eventually fade away and disappear into nothingness. So be sure to subscribe. And also, if you enjoy the video, go ahead, hit that like button. Just give it a nice good hit. Not too hard. We don't want to hurt the like button, but we want it to just point upwards. So give it a good hit upwards. All right, great. Now before we get into the video, I have one last thing to do, and that is what I like to call a shameless plug. And that is where I shamelessly plug something that I have created. I mean, it is my video, right? And I should be able to advertise something that I have made without any shame. So, it's a shameless plug. This is Mike with a shameless plug for my own website. I actually have a few websites, but today I would like to introduce you to MikeMBurkeDesigns.com. If you're looking for cool items to add to your home, give as a gift. We got Christmas, you've got birthdays. There are plenty of things to choose from here at MikeEmbergDesigns.com. A lot of these items are designed for the home. We have beautiful items for your bedroom, for your living room, all kinds of different themes. So check out MikeEmbergDesigns.com and order today. And there's my shameless plug. There is a life lesson that I have used for most of my life. And I relate this to everybody and everything. And it's a lesson that I think a lot of people need to learn. And hopefully you'll think to yourself after I tell you, why didn't I think of this? And the lesson I want to present to you today is this. Don't ever get into bed with anyone. Now, I don't mean that like, romantically or sexually, any of that. I mean that like metaphorically. Be careful and who you go to bed with. For years and years, we as a people have been putting our trust in others. And it's not a bad thing to trust someone, but you should and need to be cautious. When you put your full trust in someone, you could get hurt. We are humans, after all. It is natural for us to make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes hurt the ones we love. There are other times where we will put our trust into someone that we don't really know too well. Sometimes we put our trust into someone such as a politician, and they end up hurting us in the end. Pretty much they all do that. When I say don't get into bed with anyone, what I mean is don't put your trust into anyone without making them earn that trust. And not only earning it, but you should never fully commit to going to bed with anyone. In life, you must expect the unexpected. It doesn't matter who it is, you must always be prepared. It may be your best friend, your mother, your father, a sibling, a priest, your pastor, your rabbi, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, a politician. When you put your trust into someone, be cautious. I know this is a painful lesson to teach, especially when we're told that we're supposed to blindly trust the people in our lives. But it is a lesson that I have learned the hard way. When I was a kid, one of the very first stand-up comedy routines I saw with my siblings was Bill Cosby himself. And we laughed so much watching that. It was the funniest thing we had ever seen. And Bill Cosby became kind of like our TV dad. He had this warmth about him, and he was funny, and he, you wanted him to be your dad. And then you had the Cosby Show, and we grew up on the Cosby Show and loved the Cosby Show. And once again, it was like, I wish he was my dad. So Bill Cosby became legendary. The entire nation loved him. He would appear on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno a lot and get standing ovations, and it was like exciting every time he would make an appearance there. It was like he could do no wrong. He was talking about the inner cities and trying to make a difference and trying to teach people that, one of the problems is that there's no dads anymore, or the dads are deadbeats. He was a guy who was dedicating a part of his life to this cause. And then suddenly it was all over. All over. This guy that we all trusted, that we had all wished was our dad, who seemed like he could do no wrong. He just seemed like he was just a good, decent, solid human being and good citizen. And then we find out he's not. That he's not even close. That he's like a sexual predator, a rapist, a serial rapist. He was drugging women and raping them. He was found guilty and served prison time. I don't know about others, but for me, thinking back to the fact that I was that little kid, back in the 80s, watching Bill Cosby himself, laughing my butt off, and watching The Cosby Show and wishing that he was my dad, and thinking what an amazing entertainer he was, an awesome guy. And it turns out none of that was true. That was a strange pill to swallow. Like, it messes with your head. Like, you gotta really comprehend the fact that like, I don't want to say he was an idol or a hero. I don't have idols or hero. I don't idolize human beings. But he was certainly someone who was inspirational, someone you looked up to, someone you respected. And after you realize that I can't believe I threw all my trust into this guy, that he could do no wrong in my eyes, and really, I was wrong. I was manipulated into believing something that wasn't true. And you would think you would learn that lesson. And then Kevin Spacey comes along. I didn't really become a fan of Kevin Spacey until the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. And when I saw that movie, that movie had some of the greatest acting performances I had seen. Between Jack Lemmon, Al Pacino, Ed Harris, Alan Arkin, and then Kevin Spacey. And the way Kevin Spacey is treated in this movie, you feel bad for him. But he was so good in it. And at the time, he wasn't exactly a big star. And yet there he is going up against all these heavyweights. Jack Lemmon, for crying out loud. Al Pacino, Ed Harris, these powerhouse actors. And he was fitting right in. And I just thought, this guy has talent. This guy's gonna go somewhere. And he did. 7. The Usual Suspects. American Beauty. House of Cards. He's brilliant on that. But the thing about Kevin Spacey is, although there was always a creepy vibe with him with any role he ever played, you just thought that was the act. Because when you would see him on a talk show or in an interview, he was funny. He could do celebrity impersonations. He was a comedian. And he was funny, and he just seemed like the nicest guy in the world. And everybody thought Kevin Spacey was the nicest guy in the world. And he was just such a good actor that he was able to play creepy even though he wasn't at all. And it turns out that wasn't an act. He was creepy. The act was who he was in the talk shows, when you would see him appear anywhere. That was the act. But he wasn't acting when he was on camera. He really was that creepy guy. That perverted guy. And once again, you look at yourself and you're like, but I thought this guy was awesome. I thought he was the best. He was the greatest. And now, once again, I've been manipulated because he's not. He's horrible. And that's the lesson. I mention those two because they're famous, but this could happen to any of us with anybody. That you could think someone is one way and put all your trust into them, and it turns out they're not what you thought. And so it leaves you like stunned, like, wait a minute, but I trusted them. I put all my trust into them. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe we shouldn't be putting all of our trust into anybody. We need to be cautious. It doesn't mean that you flat out don't trust people. It means you trust with some caution. You're prepared. You realize that they're human. They're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to do certain things. But also that they may be putting a show on for you. So always be careful. And be very careful who you trust. Make sure that they earn your trust. Don't just blindly give your trust to anybody. The last lesson to really bring this point across was something that happened to me personally. When I was in the 7th grade, I made this new friend. And he would remain a friend all through high school. But he was never really my best friend because I didn't trust him. I had caught him in many different lies, and it seemed that he may have had an issue with lying. Maybe he was pathological, or simply he was embarrassed by his life and didn't want people to know the truth. So I accepted that. He was still my friend. He was still someone that was fun to be around and hang around, but I did it with an air of caution. After high school, he stood up and helped me when nobody else would. He was there helping me through very difficult times, and therefore he earned my full trust. We would stay friends throughout most of my adult life until about 11 years ago. At that time, he was going through some difficulties in his life. His mother had cancer and eventually passed away. He ended up needing a job, so I convinced the workplace I was at the time to hire him, and they did. So he became my assistant. But at some point in time, after he had been there for about 2.5 years, the company was going through some rough times, and they were talking about laying people off. Now, there was no talk about them laying off the warehouse staff, which was me and him, two of us. They were talking more about reducing the office staff. But he got very paranoid. And he was a paranoid person. He was the most paranoid person I have ever known. So he really believed that they were going to let him go. So unknown to me, he didn't want to go look for another job, so he decided he would take mine. And what he started to do, secretly, was badmouth me to the office staff, to make me look really bad. And it worked. People started to believe that what he was telling them was true. Most of what he told them were stories about himself, things that he was doing, but he would change it to make it look like it was me. Now, I know all this because he confessed. He couldn't take the guilt anymore one day. The boss of the company, the owner of the company, were calling me into the office because they were going to chastise me. So he wanted to get ahead of it, and he warned me. That was, that day, the end of our friendship. After all those years, I had been friends with him for 23 years at that point. He had completely betrayed me. He had completely turned on me, all for his own greediness. And honestly, I never saw it coming. Because I made the mistake of forgetting that he was that pathological liar. Forgetting about the bad things he had done in the time frame that I had known him. And that I should not have fully given him my trust. Because he ended up using that against me. And I was left shell-shocked. Ultimately, 5 months later, I would end up losing my job because of his sabotage. So this is a hard lesson to learn and a hard one to teach. Because there are people who want you to trust them. You know, they want you to trust. They feel like, I'm a good person. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't trust me. But you just never know. And that is why I like the phrase, don't get into bed with just anyone. You know, you're a guy, you meet a beautiful woman, you go on 3 or 4 dates, next thing you know, you go in the bed with each other. It's great, it's wonderful. You get married, you have kids, and you live together for the next 50 years. It worked out perfectly. But sometimes it doesn't work out so nicely. You have a one-night stand, you go to bed with the woman, you get her pregnant, turns out she is a monster, and she is going to take you for everything you have and destroy your life. And she was just a one-night stand. And you got to think to yourself, was it worth it? Was it worth it? You don't just jump into bed with anyone. I mean, you meet someone and go to bed, and they may have some kind of disease. And now you have that disease. That's why it is very important to be cautious and don't get into bed with everyone. And that's the lesson when it comes to trust. And it doesn't mean you be nasty to people. You know, I don't trust you. And you treat them that way. You just be cautious. You understand that they're not perfect. You understand that they're human. You understand that they may have some very dark skeletons in their closet. You understand that, you know, you need to be smart about the choices that you make. The big mistake I made was convincing my boss to hire my former friend. You know, that was my workplace. That was where I went. That was my world. And then I brought him into that world, and now suddenly there's no separation there anymore. You know, and it actually affected the friendship, and I was warned about that. My own boss said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because your friendship could get deeply affected by this. It's happened over and over again." It's also the reason why a lot of families don't work with each other, because it could create tensions and cause separations and all that stuff. So always keep in mind what I said, which is to be cautious of who you trust and how you trust, and never fully just trust someone without understanding they're not perfect. And it's not always going to go the way you want it to. And keep in the back of your head, don't just jump into bed with anybody.